Hi, everyone. My name's Janice. My name is Janice Linton. I work for the Neil John Maclean Health Sciences Library. Maylin is the other librarian who's co-hosting this today. She's going to be letting people into the room. A few more people may be coming in. Some people may have to leave early, and that's okay. And also, Maylin's going to monitor the chat. So if there's any questions or comments, anything that you need, you can just pop that into the chat and Maylin will be monitoring that. So welcome to the Systematic Review Workshop Series at the Neil John Maclean Health Sciences Library. And as I said, my name is Janice Linton. And I just wanted to begin with a traditional territories acknowledgement. And in the interest of time, I'm going to read that. My name is Janice Linton, as I mentioned. She and her are my pronouns. I'm grateful to live on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, the Innuit, Anishinaabeg, Dakota Oyate, and the Denisolini, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. I give thanks to the ancestors who took care of these lands for generations, long before I ever lived here. I am descended from Scottish and English 19th century settlers. My father taught me to honor the treaties and to respect the elders. As a member of the University of Manitoba community, I say that we, that's all of us, we respect the treaties that were made on these territories. That collectively and individually, we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of both the past and the present, and that we do dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. As a non-Indigenous friend to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, I am devoted to being part of the solution rather than part of the problem when it comes to taking action or speaking out to support equity, health, and wellness for Indigenous people. And thank you for joining me today. So a little overview of the series. Today, we're focusing on just the essentials, the very basics of the systematic review or different types of reviews related to in the systematic review family. Part 2 will be another session upcoming on a different date, and it'll be about building the systematic review step by step. Part 3, I will be, Maylin will be teaching that one. That's on advanced searching techniques. Part 4, I'll be teaching that one on efficient database searches for systematic reviews. As you'll see today, there's lots of searching involved in order to gather the evidence together for the review. Part 5, I'm going to attend that one for sure. That one's probably the one that has the newest content this year that's changed a little bit from previous years. And Maylin's going to talk about GPT, using different tools in Covidence, which is one of our best tools for knowledge synthesis, and the effective use of all tools to complete a systematic review. And don't forget to register for all 5 sessions if you want credit on the experience record for graduate students. And also, if you miss a session, you have to attend all 5 to get that experience record. But if you do want to focus on one session, you can actually look at last year's sessions for the first 4, and they're very similar to what we're teaching this year.
Hi, Janice. Sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind just making me a co-host just so I can let people in?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
My mistake. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, just have to find you on the list. Thank you very much, Maylin. And I just wanted to introduce everyone to the health sciences librarians here at the Neil John Maclean Library at the Bannatyne campus. On the right is a QR code. If you want to take a picture of that on your phone, it will take you to the page where you can book an appointment with a health sciences librarian and you have your choice. We're all specialists in different areas. Margaret Banka is our newest health sciences librarian. So welcome to Margaret. I think she's participating in this session as well today. And some of you who work at Bannatyne campus probably know Carol Cook, Maylin, Carolyn Monin, or myself. And I just want to emphasize too that we will be focusing on the health sciences library and the health sciences resources today, but the steps in the methodology, they're very similar across different disciplines. So for many people in this room, they may have already bookmarked the health sciences library website, where our knowledge synthesis tools are, where all the information about how to do the different steps of your review can be found, and lots of different resources. So this is the URL for the Health Sciences Library, and that's sort of the focus of where we'll be working from today. And in terms of showing you things, that's where those tools exist. At the bottom of the screen here is the URL for the Manitoba libraries, but most of the time I'll be showing you different resources up here at the Health Sciences Library. And this is an example of what our website looks like. I just wanted to, for some of you, this will be familiar, but a lot of people don't realize that right here, you can jump quickly to subject help. And the Health Sciences Library's databases, many of the databases that we would recommend that you use for a systematic or scoping review in the health sciences, they're listed here. This can be used as a checklist to figure out which databases you want to search in. The other thing is the knowledge synthesis section is what we're talking about today. So that's where all the tools are. And here's what the knowledge synthesis page looks like. And for different people in this room, so people are from all across the University of Manitoba. People work in different disciplines: geography, health sciences, dentistry, pharmacy, anthropology, social work. The steps here are all very similar. They may be a little different depending on your discipline. So health sciences is where systematic reviews started, was in medicine, in fact, and then it has sort of branched out into a broader range of different types of reviews, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And these are different types of reviews that are very popular. These are the types of reviews that people come to us all the time and say, I'm thinking of doing this type of review. And we ask them to look at the different types to just figure out which type might be the best for them. Likewise, in the health sciences, people need to register their protocol. They need to write up and register their protocol in a public place so that it's the methodology is clear, and also sort of to bookmark that you're doing it. And everybody across the university would benefit from using Covidence software if you're doing a big review. It helps you do screening of the abstracts, of the data, and it helps you invite members of your team to help you with that screening. There's also the PRISMA reporting guidelines are very important as well. And as I said, this is where we put all of our videos. So we're recording today's session, and we'll put up, once we've cleaned it up a little bit, we'll put it up here. This is the last year's sessions. So most of them are very similar to what we're going to do this year. Part 5 is the one that's probably going to see the most change, but there's a little bit of change in each of them. People are encouraged to make an appointment or to email us if they're interested in doing a review and they need a little bit of help. We're here to help you at whatever level you're at, whether you've done this is your first review or someone has suggested to you to do a review, or whether you've done them for a while and you just want to see what's new. And also, I want to encourage people, one of the essential parts of doing a knowledge synthesis review is to do really good literature searches. So you want to do good database searches or other types of searching. And if you're based at the Fort Garry campus, or if your review team is working out of Fort Garry, maybe social work or engineering, for example, then you can find, if you don't know your subject librarian already, you can find your subject librarian. So there will be a specialist librarian, for example, for environmental sciences, just like I'm a specialist librarian in Indigenous health, for example. And so we're here to help you. There's always that little ask us button that everybody uses, to say, gee, I can't quite get my hands on the book I want. Can you help me? Or I need help with document delivery, or what are your hours, or all those simple questions. And the ask us people here, they can also direct you to the best librarian to support you if you can't figure out who's your librarian, right? Mentioning a couple of the libraries, you may recognize some of the names of the librarians in the science library, for example, and DAFO Library also has lots of librarians. So they're specialists in teaching you how to search the types of databases necessary for your discipline. And of course, we have lots of other librarians too. So maybe you're doing something, maybe on music therapy, and you just want to touch base with a music librarian. And also sometimes it's not really a systematic review that we need to do of published literature. Sometimes the sources we need to use are actually from an archives. Your question, your research topic really dictates how you should be carrying out the methodology to extract information about that research. So just to say again, this is the introduction. So it's all introductory information today. I may be going through it fairly quickly, but we're going to post these slides on our website today. So we'll do that later this afternoon. And also we're doing the recording, so we'll publish that as soon as we can as well. So a reminder to everybody, please stay on mute for this session. You can pop your questions into the chat. Turn off your video if you haven't already, because we are recording the session, and you can ask questions as you need. And a reminder too, for graduate students who attend all 5 sessions, you can receive credit on the experience record. The sessions go from today until May 23rd. The experience record would be updated after May 23rd. So we expect your experience record would be updated by the end of June. If you have questions about this process of the experience record, Maylin is in contact with that department at the university and could direct your questions. So what is knowledge synthesis? It's the broad umbrella term that includes the family of systematic reviews or scoping reviews or realist reviews. There's lots of different types of reviews, but it's synthesizing the knowledge. It's a summary of relevant studies. It attempts to bring together evidence or information to answer specific research question or questions. It's not just about topics, it's an actual research question. It can identify gaps in the literature, which is a very common use of it. It also, it might be a systematic review, as I said, came from medicine, but scoping reviews are also very popular now and may actually be, we might be seeing more scoping reviews than systematic reviews. So the different types of reviews, as I mentioned, systematic and scoping are the 2 big ones. Some people do things like rapid reviews. Rapid review doesn't necessarily take less time. There's just a couple of different changes to the methodology between a rapid review and a scoping review, for example. So it speeds things up a tiny bit, but not much. It's not really a rapid review. All these reviews take a long time, take a lot of resources. And yeah, and an umbrella review, that was something that grew out of the review family. There's lots of reviews now. So sometimes we want a review of the reviews, and that's what an umbrella review is. And the other thing is, there are similar necessary steps. There's always a few necessary steps in every review. There are some differences between the types of reviews. And which review is right for you. Some people come to us and they say they want to do a scoping review, but when they actually look at what their question is, then they kind of rethink it and say, well, maybe there's a different type of review I want to do. Maybe a scoping review is going to take too long, and I just want to do a really good narrative review and get it published. And we're here to help with that as well. And this is an example. This slide just shows you, I ran a quick search in Scopus, for example. I use Scopus. It's a very big interdisciplinary database, so it covers the sciences, the health sciences, the social sciences quite well. It focuses on keywords, which is natural language. That's the terminology I'm using. Don't necessarily always search in subject headings. And it's 90 million records. So it's a lot of data to play with. And my specialty is Indigenous health. So I'm looking at all aspects of health when I'm thinking about health. I'm looking at both the social and medical aspects that might impact on health. So any database, so if you like using Web of Science, if you like using EBSCOhost or ERIC or any of the other databases, you can do a similar search just to see what types of reviews are being done in your discipline. So in this slide, you can see some of the reviews are systematic reviews, and they're in medicine. If you look at this one here next to number 23, exploring biologic treatment hesitancy among Black and Indigenous populations in Canada, it's a review. So that's just the term they probably used for a literature review. So it's a good review. It's going to bring together the knowledge and the context, and it's from the social sciences. And so that type of review still needs to do the people who work on that kind of review still need to do a really good literature search, still need to pick the best databases, still need to do an analysis, and there may be lots of different elements. So when I open up a narrative review now, often I'm looking at a scoping review because they've reported what databases they chose, what focus of literature they're focusing on. So maybe they're looking at literature published since 2010, for example. Maybe they're only looking at English language literature. So it has a lot of the same elements as some of the bigger systematic reviews. So the type of information I'm going to give you today will actually support different types of reviews that you're going to perhaps do. This one here, number 24, is a qualitative systematic review. So something a little bit different. And that one is in dentistry and oral health. This one here, number 25 on this list, is a systematic review of culturally competent family violence responses to women in primary care. So, it sounds health sciences because it's primary care, but it's actually talking about cultural competency and family violence. So it's from the social side of medicine and social sciences. And it's in journal called Trauma, Violence, and Abuse. And this is a journal. I was co-author on a review a few years ago, and it was published in this journal. And I also do some peer review for that journal. And there, over in the social sciences, there may be slightly different criteria of how to carry out a really good review. So it's always good to check in with your librarians on that. This is another example from Scopus. And in this case, I just thought, well, interested in something to do with post-secondary education. So I'm looking at different types of reviews done in post-secondary education. And so here's just, once again, it's a review. It's not necessarily a scoping or a systematic review. It's a review. This is a reflective review of the literature on this one. And that might be something different. This is a systematic review of food insecurity on post-secondary education campuses. That might be something that's of interest to me. This one down here is a critical scoping review protocol. So they've published their protocol, but not the full review yet. So you might want to know, how do you identify reviews? So this is an example of Scopus. I used Scopus as the database. Could use Web of Science, could use EBSCOhost, you could use any number of databases. And a librarian can help you, if you don't know already, you can restrict your search to the article title, type in the word review, and you can look for all different types of reviews in a database, and then you can put in maybe one of the elements that you're interested in. In this case, I typed in post-secondary education. Some people have a space between post and secondary. Some people have post-secondary as one word. I used double quotation marks to force it to search it as a phrase. And I was just looking for different types of reviews done in this area. I could have picked any subject or any topic. I could have said gestational diabetes. I'm looking for reviews on gestational diabetes. I could have said anthropology or geography, GIS systems, anything that I wanted. And I could just find out what kinds of reviews are being published and where are they being published. So talking about the basics for all different types of reviews, it's a good idea, if you can, to know the literature about your topic. So have a good idea what the literature is like. What are the nuances? If you're looking at different types of diabetes, for example, like what type of diabetes are you interested in what population perhaps, that kind of thing. Have a little bit of background. So there's always lots of searching, not just for the data gathering for the review, but there's also lots of searching of the databases just to kind of get an idea of how much literature is out there, who's published what other types of reviews have been done. So how do people do reviews in your discipline? You want to find out. If nobody's doing scoping reviews in anthropology, maybe there's a different type of review that you should be focusing on. Where are you planning on publishing? And it's never too early to think about publishing. If you're going to put a lot of work into doing a long review, a big review, that would probably be something that's publishable if it provides unique information about that topic and that research question. So if your desire is to, I want to have one article published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal by the time I'm 30 or by the time I'm done my degree, you find out, does that journal actually publish reviews, or do they only publish original research? Do they only publish shorter articles? Different journals have very different criteria. So it's always good to think about where you're going to publish. And if you need to publish in an open access place because you have some grant funding, then maybe you want to look at different options. Systematic reviews definitely take a long time. They take a team of people. The research question always should dictate what type of research or evidence-based review should be done to answer it. A lot of people come to me and they say, oh, we want to do a review on this because there's not much information on it. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not the type of research question that requires a review, but maybe it requires some good original research, using some methodologies to maybe interview people or to collect data in another way. And basics again, PRISMA is the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analyses. So whenever we're talking about the knowledge synthesis family, PRISMA comes up, and it's a very important protocol. It's an important guide to how to report the review. And this is what PRISMA looks like. We have links from our website. And once again, this is, over in medicine, this is what they use is PRISMA. And there are different elements of PRISMA that you might use even if you were doing a review that's outside of the health sciences. So there's a checklist, the flow diagram, and I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. And also some explanation. So if I do a systematic review and I publish it in an open access journal, maybe in BMJ or BMC, they might say to me, we want a checklist. We want to see the checklist to make sure you followed PRISMA. And they might demand that as a first step in order to looking at a paper, an article that I might submit or that the team submits for publication. So in medicine, they want the checklist. So I say to people, everybody, you should always have that checklist started. It's never too early to start your checklist. In the social sciences, maybe they don't really demand that checklist, but you don't know sometimes until you're ready to submit for publication. But it's always good to just look at other reviews in your field. So this is what the PRISMA flow diagram looks like. Anybody in health sciences or nursing, for example, would recognize this. But this is a good thing that you can use. You can include it in your publication. In health sciences, it's pretty much demanded that you include this in your publication in a good health sciences journal. It's definitely required. But I find in a lot of different reviews I do in the social sciences, it's a good thing to include this as well. It really helps people. It helps people evaluate the quality of the work and the quality of the searches. So it'll give information about the number of databases that have been searched, the number of journal articles that were found, how many duplicates were found. And down here would be the number of studies that we actually included in the review. So for a large review, maybe there's 3,000 or 4,000 items up here, take out some duplicates, and might filter down to about 18 articles, 20 articles, 60 articles sometimes that people actually extracted the data from in order to do the analysis. So what is a systematic review? The classic systematic review is this. And I'll just let you read that slide. So it's really about bringing all the evidence together and to do an actual analysis and to do it in according to scientific methods, which is why the prisma is important in order to make it transparent and clear what you've done, what your story is based on that evidence or what your analysis is, and that it can be reproducible so that if somebody wants to carry out the same review 5 years from now, they can use pretty much the same methods to see if things have changed, for example. But it's all about reporting and being accountable and showing what you did and the steps you took. It has a clearly stated set of objectives. It has predefined eligibility criteria. So you want to know your inclusion and exclusion criteria early, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And as I mentioned, explicit reproducible methodologies so that another person can run your search and see if there's anything new, for example. It attempts to identify all the studies that would meet that eligibility criteria. It's really up to you to decide what your eligibility criteria is to include a study in that analysis. And yeah, the assessment in medicine, often you want to look at the assessment of risk of bias. It's a systematic presentation and a synthesis of the characteristics and findings of the included studies. And you can analyze those studies in any criteria that you want to apply. So one of the basics, once again, assessing the need for a systematic review, and that would be, as I mentioned, you could run a search in one of the big databases, like I showed you for Scopus, just to see what other, if somebody else has done a review. You can also look in the Cochrane Library if you're in medicine to see if there's been a Cochrane review done. Sometimes people do that. And as I mentioned, want to identify the types of reviews in your field, and I showed you that a couple of minutes ago. And I showed you how to do in Scopus and how to find any type of review on your topic. And also, there's a couple of other new terms for some people. So Prospero is a database in the UK where systematic reviews are registered. And a lot of times in medicine, when we go to submit the article for publication, they say, give us the Prospero link. And we have to show that we actually registered it in Prospero from the beginning, with our inclusion and exclusion criteria, before we had gathered any results, but after we had done some background searching to refine our question. So Prospero is a really good one. If you're doing a systematic review in medicine, you want to go and search Prospero. Most of the time for scoping reviews, often we register them in something called OSF, or the Open Science Framework. Goes by a couple of other different names as well. And scoping reviews are registered there. And once again, when you go to register when you go to publish that review, they're going to ask for the link. Excuse me, I just have to get some water. They're going to ask for the link, and the link will be to your record in the Open Science Framework. So, and also when a team comes to me and they say, yeah, we're doing a scoping review, I often say, well, let's go see what's already been registered. What are people working on? And it gives us an idea if somebody else is doing the same review as we are. So the basics to assemble your team. So you have a great idea, you have a good research question. First thing to do is start thinking about who's going to be on your team. So probably you. You're going to need a second person to screen the results for most of the reviews, not for all of them, but for most of them, you really should have a second screener. And you probably will want a third person to act as a tiebreaker so when those two screeners, most of the time they can resolve their conflicts. Is this one should be included or should it not be included? But sometimes you just want to, just for speed, you might have an advisor, for example, who acts as a tiebreaker on that handful of the handful of research articles that you're not too sure if they should be included or not because there's a disagreement amongst the screeners. It's a good thing to have a knowledge synthesis expert, somebody who's done scoping reviews or systematic reviews before, or who knows the process and the methodology. Always important to have a subject expert. So a cancer treatment specialist, a nephrologist, a gerontologist, a social worker, different people. Usually good to touch base with your librarians and to listen to the librarians and to check in with the librarians and ask for help whenever you need it, or just ask, are you missing anything? Is there anything that you're missing? It's also important to have a committee of knowledge users. For me in Indigenous health, we often have elders. Lots of times when I'm working in healthcare, the team will have a bunch of people from Manitoba Health on the team who will give us not only their experience and what the system is like, how's the system going to use our evidence, but how are they going to use the evidence that we generate for policy? It's really good to have those people at the table early in the game, or other types of administrators. Always good to have statisticians, especially if you're doing like a meta-analysis or different types of analyses. I was helping someone in medicine, and she clearly is a good statistician, or has a statistician on the team, because the analysis looked really good, even at a preliminary stage. Often a person will have more than one role. So, for example, if a librarian was on your team, that person might be the most knowledgeable person for knowledge synthesis. Screeners are often people who are just really interested in the topic and know a lot about it. So maybe a couple of students in social work, for example, would be the screeners, because they would be able to screen fairly quickly if it was a social work topic, for example. So you need to develop the research question so it goes beyond the topic stage. You often have a primary research question, which is stated in the title of the article or review that you write. Often there's 2 or 3 secondary questions that you have, and this helps your team figure out exactly what they're going to do, helps the screeners when they're screening. There's various models that can help you refine those questions or define them. PICO is used in medicine and health sciences and nursing quite a bit. PCC is also used, like population, context, and concept. SPIDER is another one, and there's COCOPOP, which is a lot like PCC. COCOPOP is a new one to me. It's looking at the condition or problem, the context, and also the population. And that's a lot of what I do in community health. So PICO has a population. You clearly define your population. Maybe it's children. You clearly have an intervention. If some questions do, some don't. Often there's a comparator, whether I give this treatment or not this treatment, or this treatment compared to that treatment. Those are comparators. Often we're looking for the outcomes, or we want to clearly define the outcomes. And often the S is for study design, if we add an S on. So lots of different models. So in this case, what is the effectiveness of non-surgical intervention? So we have an intervention on shoulder pain, range of motion, and function for managing adhesive capsulitis in patients with diabetes. So the population is patients with diabetes, right? We have an intervention. We have some comparators perhaps, and it's very specific. So for SPIDER, we have a sample. PI is phenomena of interest. D is design. E is evaluation. And R is research type. So some people would use this to develop their question, or they take their question and they figure out, does it fit into this model? So what are the experiences of young parents in attendance at antenatal education classes? And here's an example from population concept and context. And it's looking at quality of life questionnaires. So we have population of pediatric patients following tonsillectomies, right? Looking at two different types of adenoidectomies, right? With or without chronic infections for sleep disordered breathing. So very specific. So we often see in the reviews, you'll see a box or an area of the review that says, what's our inclusion and exclusion criteria? This is essential for all these different types of reviews that are in the knowledge synthesis family. So you have to have very specific, what do you mean? What's your inclusion criteria? What does it mean? What's the exclusion criteria? And you really need to specify it early. I mean, scoping reviews themselves are kind of an iterative process. So you do some background searching and you say, okay, I'm interested in this, but I'm interested in this aspect. And you kind of refine your question in those early stages. But you really should have your inclusion and exclusion criteria fairly early in the game before you do a lot of data gathering. And you can have things like English language articles, a certain era or published since 2010 or published since 2000 or going back to the dawn of time, back to the beginning of the databases. It's up to you. And it could be, what do you mean by young adults? What do you mean by young parents? Maybe young parents is you're thinking of anybody ages 16 to 30. Maybe that's your population of young parents. Maybe in an article about childhood diabetes, maybe you're interested in children under 12, or maybe you're interested in pediatric patients under 21. You decide those things, and that's what your screeners will be screening for that. So in this case, we have population, children and adults of any age visiting an emergency department. We have an intervention, comparator, and outcomes, and a study design. So this is the PICO model, for example, that this person or this team used. And then they talked about what these are, and they said, here's the exclusion criteria. So we want this, but we don't want this, right? Some people say, well, we want journal articles, but we don't want conference papers, for example. Some people specify other criteria. So in this case, for example, there's their study designs. They have very specific types of studies that they include in this medical review, and yet they don't want case reports. They don't want other reviews. They don't want commentary or editorials. And this is the kind of thing that the screeners have to screen out, but also the librarian can help you figure out, is there a filter or a way to narrow your results to focus on this? Is there a way to eliminate these using some tools in the databases? So that's why it's really important to speak with a specialist librarian if you can. So you're going to develop the protocol. And as I mentioned, registering the protocol is essential in medicine, in Prospero for systematic reviews. open science framework is open to anybody. It's free. It just takes, a few minutes to put your criteria and your protocol into open science framework, and it gets added to that database, and then you have it registered. So that's a good thing to do for anybody. You can also search the open science framework to see how other people have entered their information for their reviews. Some people I've noticed in community health sciences in particular, a lot of people are publishing their protocols now. So they publish the protocol in a journal like BMJ Open or Systematic Reviews. Most journals won't publish a protocol for a review, but these two journals in medicine and health sciences will publish a protocol. There's some journals and places in nursing too, where you can publish the protocol. So there are some options there. Most of these open access journal options for publishing the protocol actually cost quite a bit. They have article processing fees of thousands of dollars. So this is an option. Some people have been publishing their protocol in the health sciences. But it's not necessary. You really should register your protocol, but it's optional if you actually want to publish it in a peer-reviewed journal. This is the type of information that if you go to the Health Sciences Library's website, in the knowledge synthesis section, we have some places where you can see the methodological guidance for scoping review, for example. So this has some references to scoping reviews, specific and systematic reviews, and these are different places that you can look. So we've given you on our website sort of the best places, the best references for if you need to write up your methodology. You want to explain why you've picked a certain method. You want to explain that you're following suggested steps in scoping reviews. So we've put up, the handful of articles for each type of review where you really need to be familiar with it in order to create your methodology and write it up. So the systematic review, everybody wants to get right into the searching right away. Everyone I talk to. You need to do background searches. One example of a background search is what I showed you in Scopus. Just look for different types of reviews. But also you just want to do some background searches in your area of interest just to help you refine that question. Consult a librarian who's a specialist or who can help you just decide which database. It's really important. A lot of people come to me and they said, these are the 5 databases I want to search. And I'll look at them and I'll go, well, the first 3, yeah, I can understand that, but why do you want to search these other ones? And often we run really quick little tests just to see, even if we should include that database searching. So a lot of people say, oh, I want to search PsycInfo. And I'll say, but it's not a psychiatric research question. And so I'll say, well, let's run a quick search to see if PsycInfo has anything unique that's of value. Often there isn't anything there, right? Because it's not a necessary question. It's not a necessary database for their topic. You always want to keep notes. So I always start a Word document right away. And it says, this is what I think the question is. And I refine it as we go on, where I think we should probably register it or how we should handle the registration of the protocol, where I think the team might want to do publishing it, start to look at those early, have an idea of, based on what the team says, which databases, maybe run some test searches. And so I start a big Word document. So for every review that I help with, and I'm just one small part of it, I might have 50 or 60 pages of notes, right? Lots of it is screenshots of stuff that I've tried and different keywords I've used. You want to think about the search strategy. Do you have subject headings in each of the databases to help you with your topic? What are the keywords? And this is where the team is so valuable. Somebody will say, well, we're only interested in gestational diabetes. And somebody will say, well, I think that might be, the subject heading might be called diabetes in pregnancy. So go and check in the databases to see what the subject headings are and the keywords. And this helps you not only be sure that you're comprehensive, but also that you don't pull in a whole bunch of irrelevant material because, it's not really a good idea if your screeners have to go through 8,000 articles, title abstract screening. That might mean your search isn't that good, or maybe your question's a little bit too big. So always some background searches helps you to figure out how much literature is there, and you want to have a nice set of results so that you don't miss any of the evidence. Once again, librarians have suggestions sometimes or experience in using different search filters. Some of us refer to those as hedges. And sometimes we can just help you, or sometimes it's good to just talk to a librarian. And yeah, you might say, well, I want to go back in the literature forever. And sometimes I go, well, maybe it's more like we want to go back to 2000, for example. And so also searching the literature, consult the librarian. Translate the search strategy across all the databases that you have chosen to search. So once again, if you're searching, if somebody says, well, I think we should search in Medline, somebody else says, well, we better search in Embase as well, because they're both big biomedical databases. You want to run the searches when you have finalized your search strategies. So you've done lots of tests, you've done lots of refining, and you're ready to do the actual search. And to get to that point takes quite a while, quite a bit of work. You want to copy those exact search strategies. You want to have documentation of what those search strategies are, because pretty much everybody who works on a review, because a review takes quite a few months, can take several years. Usually just before publication, just before submitting for publication, you want to run another quick search to see if anything has been published since you ran those initial searches, which are the bulk of your analysis. You want to save the searches. Often the librarian will know, how to save a search really quickly in the Ovid databases for Medline and Embase, for example, or how to document your search for publication, because you really need to show exactly what you searched and what you did. Searching the literature, once again, you can always check in with your librarians, say, is there anything else I need to do? Anything else I need to search? A lot of reviews, especially scoping reviews, will do backwards and forward searching. So we'll link our citations. So if I look at if I've included reviews in my criteria, my inclusion and exclusion criteria, I might use the reviews related to that topic and look at the reference list there. Is there anything I might have missed in my database search? So people will go backwards and forwards and look at different things. Who cited the key research that I'm citing? Is there something there that I should be including in that table of analysis of the final review, the final articles for review? You want to have a process for removing duplicates. We recommend that covenants can be used by most teams when there's more than one screener to help you pull out those duplicates. And also scholarly acknowledgement of the librarian's unique role. So, maybe acknowledge the librarian in the paper, because you're going to maybe talk about as part of your methodology. We consulted a librarian in the health sciences on some of the big grants. We are often doing the bulk of the searching ourselves. For students, we ask you to do the searching. We'll show you how to do it. We'll give you some ideas. But for faculty teams, for grant-funded faculty teams, sometimes we're the searchers, and we're also quite involved in the methodology, so we become co-authors. So you have to sort of figure out the level of everybody on your team and how to properly acknowledge them. Here's an example of a search strategy. This was actually created by one of the librarians here in the Health Sciences Library, who does work for the WRHA and Manitoba Health out of one of our units. And so here they did a Medline search, and this is what's included in the submission for publication. This is included in the actual publication. And it shows that in this case, in this database, there's a little slash after the term middle-aged and different other geriatrics. And that means it's a subject heading. So these were subject headings that were chosen to be searched. These are subject headings as well. And then they did some keyword searching, different types of searching terms. And then they did some fancy stuff here, and then they restricted it to certain fields within the database. So here's the population being middle-aged people or older people. Then the other part of their question was about resistance training. So they have a whole bunch of different terminology for resistance training. And then they were interested in a certain type or certain level of evidence. They were interested only in clinical trials, for example, and controlled clinical trials, RCTs. And then down here, there's just a couple of lines here. And these are the examples of filters. So this librarian said, I can show you a few filters so that we can focus, we can get higher relevance of results, fewer articles to screen, but good comprehensiveness, and we won't miss anything, but we're focusing on high evidence and different types. So in this case, they went from, I don't know, a lot, 5 million, in the middle-aged population. And once they started bringing it all together, all these different concepts, they got it down to 2,200, for example. And this is one database. And in this example, they might have searched 3 databases, each gathering around 2,000. But once you put it into Covidence, maybe that would take it down even further because it would take out the duplicates. So in this case, the article for which that one search was the comparison of power training versus traditional strength training on physical function in older adults. And I want you to note, they say a systematic review and meta-analysis. When I talk about the PRISMA guidance and protocols, the first thing they do is they say, if you're going to do one of these, in the title, you should tell people what kind of review it is. That's just good practice, and so that's the type of information that you can get from those PRISMA checklists is, how to write the title, how to write the abstract, what should your inclusion and exclusion criteria be, how to describe the database searching, right? What's important to include in the article in order to explain what the methodology was that you used. And screening basics. To review the results in screening, have firm criteria for inclusion and exclusion. You want to be able to communicate the eligibility criteria to the screeners. That's very important that all the screeners understand, what do we mean by pediatrics? What do we mean by this topic or that topic? Communicate the eligibility criteria. Test a batch of 10 to 25 citations. This is just good practice to identify any problems that the screeners are going to have. So you find, you do your searching, and then you hand over 25 references to the 2 screeners. You give the screeners the inclusion exclusion criteria. And then you sort of see, is there a lot of agreement? If out of the 25, they disagreed on 24 of them, then obviously the screeners need a little bit more help in understanding the inclusion exclusion criteria. But also you sort of get an idea, you also get an idea of how long it's going to take the screeners to go through. If they can do 25, screen 25 title abstracts in 2 hours, say, that gives you information. If they can do it in half an hour, that gives you more information too. And as we mentioned, Covidence software. So you link to Covidence from the University of Manitoba website. University of Manitoba Libraries has paid for the subscription to Covidence. You want to use the paid subscription, and you'll be able to do as many reviews as you want. And then you have to extract the data once the screening's been done and you've decided which ones should be included. So out of maybe 5,000 or 3,000 or 1,200, however many you retrieved, maybe 20 have met the criteria for data extraction. And you want to use a standardized form, and we can kind of help you identify different articles that have used that. As we mentioned, there's the knowledge synthesis guide. This is a good example of how someone on your team has done KS before. Often they'll know, they'll have a data extraction form. They'll have an idea of how the data could be analyzed. And your team members will know. In Indigenous health, for example, we're often looking at a topic or a research question of interest, in Indigenous people and we're interested in Indigenous people in Canada, but maybe we'll include Australian data and American data from the United States and from New Zealand, because we also want to see what other populations are doing for a research in an area on colonized people. Some reviews will include the data extraction forms and the supplemental materials. So for systematic reviews, some people use critical appraisal tools, and we've given some examples there. And we can help you find more information about that. And as I said, once you look at reviews in your area, you'll figure out it'll, people will be using critical appraisal tools or they won't be, right? Different types of reviews. In the health sciences, people use them a lot, but not always. And as mentioned here, variables include the type of review, type of data, qualitative, observational, RCTs, etc. And just going to go through these last few slides. We have about 3 minutes left. So the analysis, you want to analyze the data, might be quantitative, might be qualitative, different types of criteria that you're going to apply for the analysis. Often it's dependent on what type of review and what you're looking at. Are you medical therapeutics or population health, qualitative studies, for example, or quantitative studies? Then you get down to writing the review. And usually you have a pretty good idea of what the analysis is going to look like because you've probably been one of the screeners, for example. So you have a good idea of what's been included so far. And also just go back and sort of check to see how other people are writing their reviews, especially if you have a journal in mind. Go in and look to see some recent reviews. If you're going to publish a scoping review in a certain journal, go in and look at maybe the last couple of years worth of scoping reviews in that particular journal, just to see how their methods were. Because you want to be able to submit your article for publication and that it will pass peer review. So just before submitting your article for publication, you probably want to update the search just to see if anything new has been added. So often that's where it's really important to make sure you captured an exact outline of what the search was, right? So your exact search strategy. And once again, the librarian can help you figure out how to store the search so that you can just go back into the database and rerun the exact search and maybe focus on the last 6 months. If it's been 6 months since you ran the last search, or maybe a year. Some teams take a couple of years to get one of these reviews done. And just going to talk a little bit about systematic reviews in the sciences, humanities, and social sciences. So a lot of what we discussed here is applicable outside of health, but not everything. Different disciplines do have their own standards. Talk to your subject librarian. And take-home messages. Systematic reviews do take a lot of time. They're equal to most other research studies. So a systematic review is not like the poor cousin of the original research family. It's actually a very valid way to synthesize the evidence. The average time with an experienced team is a year. I would say it's actually more like 18 months. And the figure I read recently was the whole team, if you add up all of the hours, somebody estimated it's 880 hours. That's a lot of time, right? That's why it's not just you doing the work, you have a team, right? But if you want to do it everything from the start to from concept of, gee, we have a good topic, we think this would make a good review, to actually publishing it and going through the peer review process, could take it could take a year and a half. So, plan accordingly and use the tools to speed things up, whether it's librarians or whether it's some software or tools, lots of things can speed things up. Do a systematic review because it's the most appropriate methodology. So if you're not finding any results, might mean you have to step back and do original research, and design a different methodology to find out the evidence on your question, to answer your question. And don't do it just because somebody said, oh, I think you should do a scoping review as part of your dissertation or thesis. Yeah, we all need to do lots of really good narrative reviews, literature reviews. We need to do top-notch reviews, but not the scoping review and systematic review is like a whole extra workload because you have to explain step by step what you did and how you did it. So that's why it's quite a bit more work, right? It's not just doing the work, but it's explaining it as well. It's a lot of your time well spent because you can get a really good publication out of it. You can really make a mark in your field. It is a long-term commitment. A lot of people like that as well. There is software sometimes, for example, if you want to use EndNote, that costs money. Lots of people are doing reviews now with Zotero, for example. It's a free software for bibliographic reference management. If you want to publish an open access or your funder demands open access publication for this, that's going to cost some money. So once again, talk to librarians. We can help you figure out how to publish and submit to a journal that has those charges waived, or we can help you figure out which journal and maybe even, how to access some funds for that. The Health Sciences Library, once again, this is where we started from. The Health Sciences Library under subject help. There is the knowledge synthesis section. And today we do have an evaluation for anyone who's able to fill it out. We have an evaluation, and I believe Maylin has popped that into the chat. And I do want to say thank you very much for your attention today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we're here to help. And that's it. Anybody have any questions? Maylin, do you have any comments?
No, we had a lot of great questions in the chat, so I really appreciate everybody chiming in, and that I hope to see people next week for next session. But thanks, Janice. That was excellent.
Well, thanks, Maylin. I really appreciate your help. So thanks again for coming, and we're just going to end this session, and the recording will be posted. Thanks, Maylin. Bye-bye.